Word knowledge. For each question that follows, choose a definition from those in the list that most completely and accurately has the same meaning as the underlined word in the question. 21. Joan of Arc's exploits are famous throughout all of France. A. Discoveries. B. Deeds. C. Extortions. D. Tests. 22. The candidate's confidence that he would win the election was somewhat speculative. A. Assured. B. Mistaken. C. Deceptive. D. Assumed. 23. Because of his skullduggery, Tom was becoming well known at the precinct. A. Trickery. B. Benevolence. C. Crimes. D. Laziness. 24. An advance team is usually the precursor to a full-scale invasion. A. Beginning. B. End. C. Forerunner. D. Replacement. 25. The teacher chastened the energetic child. A. Pursued. B. Disciplined. C. Expelled. D. Calmed. 26. The novice chef demonstrated great facility in the kitchen. A. Ease. B. Difficulty. C. Assistance. D. Confusion. 27. Charlotte put the unused wedding dress on consignment. A. In storage. B. For exhibit. C. For donation. D. For sale by another. 28. The man entered into the agreement with a great deal of ostentation. A. Hostility. B. Pretense. C. Trepidation. D. Authority. 29. The old man in the rocking chair was inert all afternoon. A. Asleep. B. Moving. C. Unmoving. D. Occupied. 30. It seemed as though nothing could break through Mrs. Simpson's despondency. A. Anger. B. Hopelessness. C. Mental focus. D. Joy. Paragraph comprehension. For the questions in this section, answer each question according to context, word knowledge, connotation, and inference. 31. Because of their shared hubris, Lewis and Clark believed that they did not need Sacagawea's interpreting capacity for anything other than to trade for horses. This self-confidence and chauvinism led them to deem her unnecessary to establishing contact with the Indians. For this reason, Lewis did not ask Sacagawea to come with him on his quest to find the Shoshones, partly in response to Clark's previous dismissal of Sacagawea's importance in handling the Indians, and partly because the explorers' self-confidence negated any common sense that they may have exercised. From this passage, what can you infer that the term hubris means? A. Temerity. B. Arrogance. C. Hesitation. D. Carelessness. 32. In most large airports, travelers can usually get wireless access, but they must either subscribe to a service or bill their credit cards on a pay-as-you-go basis to do so. However, airports in Lexington, Kentucky, and Blountville, Tennessee, are providing free wireless internet service throughout their terminals, allowing computer users to log on to the internet without paying access fees or subscribing to a service. Airport visitors wanting to use the service can connect to the airport's internet service using a laptop computer or handheld device with a standard wireless access card. According to this passage, who can access this wireless service? A. Wireless customers who subscribe to a service. B. Remote access customers. C. Credit card customers. D. Airport customers with a wireless access card installed in their laptops or handheld devices. 33. Throughout society, you can find many people who have accumulated more financial gain than they can ever use in this lifetime. Instead of sating their desire to achieve, this accumulation has created an insatiable hunger for more and more. Even to the point at which they feel no qualms about cheating the unaware and the powerless out of their meager portions just to moderately appease their voracious appetite for more. In all of nature, you will not find any kind of animal, whether domesticated or wild, who will avail themselves of the opportunity to accumulate immense quantities of food. What is the main point of this passage? A. People tend to be greedy. B. Animals tend to be greedy. C. People are wise to store up what they may need. D. People will take only what they need. 34. Because the concept of Wi-Fi is relatively new, it will take time for attitudes, technology, and regulations to progress. It might eventually mean that the rules for Wi-Fi become stricter, even to the point of outlawing home and personal networks. Conversely, it might mean that the federal government gives greater leeway in providing for and supporting the existence of those networks. Regardless, over time the social and official laws that define the domain in which community wireless networks exist will become clearer. Perhaps that's a good thing, but we will wait and see. According to the passage, what can you infer about the current regulations regarding Wi-Fi? A. Current laws are lenient. B. Current laws are strict. C. No defined regulations currently exist. D. Corporate America will define the direction of Wi-Fi regulations. 35. There was an air of calm and reserved opulence about the Whiteman mansion that spoke not of money squandered, but of wealth prudently applied. Henry Van Dyke, The Mansion. In this passage, what is the inferred meaning of opulence? A. Extravagance. B. Peacefulness. C. Affluence. D. Age. 36. Radar, which is much like the echolocation that bats and dolphins use, detects the presence of an object by transmitting short bursts of high-frequency radio waves that bounce off an object to give its distance, speed, and dimensions. The reflected signal gives a radar cross-section, RCS, of an airplane or other target. Stealth technology reduces the RCS by using flat, angular designs and coating the airplane with radar-absorbing materials, such as iron ferrites. Although the radar can still see the airplane, the combination of design features distorts the RCS and can make the airplane's signature appear as small as a bird. According to this passage, what is the primary advantage of stealth technology? A. It decreases airplane wind resistance. B. It lets airplanes see missiles. C. It makes the planes invisible to radar. D. It gives the airplanes a very small radar signature. 37. It is a wonderful thing that here and there in this hard, uncharitable world there should still be left a few rare souls who think no evil. This is the great unworldliness. Love thinketh no evil, imputes no motive, sees the bright side, puts the best construction on every action. What a delightful state of mind to live in. What a stimulus and a benediction even to meet with it for a day. To be trusted is to be saved. And if we try to influence or elevate others, we shall soon see that success is in proportion to their belief of our belief in them. Henry Drummond, Love, the greatest thing in the world. According to this passage, how do love and belief in another person affect that person? A. It makes them believe in themselves. B. It makes us feel good about ourselves. C. We look good to others. D. We can expect them to feel the same way about us. 38. General Robert E. Lee was one of the most significant military leaders in the history of the United States. Although he was a brilliant strategist and had the heart of a lion, his concern was for the safety and well-being of his boys. All who served under General Lee were devoted to him and looked to him as a father, devoted more to their leader than to the cause. For that reason, every casualty struck General Lee as if it were his own kin. According to the passage, what kind of man can we assume that General Robert E. Lee was? A. Militarily aggressive at all costs. B. Intelligent and compassionate. C. Timid and uncertain. D. Aloof and cold. 39. He unbuttoned his jacket and shirt and drew forth his lunch. The action consumed no more than a quarter of a minute, yet in that brief moment the numbness laid hold of the exposed fingers. He did not put the mitten on but, instead, struck the fingers a dozen sharp smashes against his leg. Jack London, to build a fire. What is the setting or context of this passage? A. The man was tired and weary. B. It was winter and he was cold. C. The man had hurt his hand. D. His hand had fallen asleep. 40. In light of the increasingly limited funds available to industry, most companies find that they have specific job requirements, but cannot justify the additional personnel as full-time hires. Due to this trend, telecommuting is on the leading edge of a distinct change in industry practices. The primary disadvantage of using telecommuting employees is that they are not under daily supervision and are left to their own recognizance to complete assignments on time. That consideration aside, telecommuters allow companies to fulfill contract requirements without paying the overhead costs of a full-time employee. Another benefit is that companies do not have to pay for an employee on the time clock when there is no work to do. According to this passage, what is the corporate drawback of using telecommuters? A. Companies incur lower overhead costs. B. Companies do not have to pay for employee downtime. C. Companies cannot supervise telecommuting employees on a daily basis. D. Telecommuting is a leading-edge practice. Mathematics knowledge.